Big Brick Street, much nicer than Wally's. If everybody could start the meeting by please silencing your cell phones, so while our speakers are speaking, we don't have to have anybody's ringers going off. So we do have a full night, so hopefully we'll make it out of here at a decent time tonight. And I just want to let you guys know that we are in the process of rebuilding the GLA website to a new real estate association website platform. So there will be more updates to come on that as that rolls out here in the next 30 to 60 days. The new site will also allow you guys to market your properties on the website, hopefully in a much less glitchy way. So we're super excited about that. I also just kind of want to bring attention to like one of the GLA benefits that you have for being a member is that onlinerentapp.com. It's the free online rental application software. You can set up surveys on that for in applications for people to do them for free, where you do not get a credit report or criminal background check, or you can set up where it actually collects the $25 from your applicant, and when they pay the $25, you get a credit report in a real easy to read pie chart type format and a criminal background check. So that's onlinerentapp.com, and that's available to all of you guys to use for free. The only cost is when the tenant applies the $25 to pay for the reports. All right, so Bobby has a great vendor for us. Please help me welcome Bobby Kirby to the stage to introduce tonight's vendor.
Good evening, everybody. We do have a great person here tonight to speak to us. Our vendor is Renee Hendricks from Comcast Xfinity. And Renee has, oh, wow. If you see your, if you look at your agenda, it'll tell all about Renee. She has 10 years of experience, and she won all kinds of awards. Oh, and did you read the article on Renee? There's an article on her also.
She's famous.
In the Grand Blanc News?
Yeah, it was a Grand Blanc.
It was, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Right. So, let's give her a big hand, please.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm short. So, I have been with Comcast for over 10 years. I do residential service for Comcast. So the benefit of you guys referring your tenants to me is they get much better customer service. Nobody likes dialing the 1-800 number, right? Right. No one. They get better, they have much better customer service and better pricing. So just really benefits you guys to refer the tenants to me. But I did leave, I think a lot of you have packets like this on your table. So you could just give it to the tenants, and in here it just describes like a little paper about what I do in the area, about our channel lineup in the area. There's some information about our apps and our services. We offer TV, including streaming live TV. We're also coming out with something called Peacock in a few months, which is like Netflix, and it has exclusive content that no one else will have, because we own Universal Studios. Also, we have internet, home phones, cell phones, and home security system. So a lot of people don't know we have all of those services. And also, I know a lot of the tenants, well, if they were to call and put consumers in their name at the house, sometimes Consumers Energy can refer you to a contracting company that sets people up for Comcast. And so some people are aware of that. I heard a yes somewhere. Okay. Those orders always get messed up because the technicians always call me and be like, hey, can you fix this order? And I can't because it's not under my rep number. So they should call me before they call consumers, or tell them not to set their service up through consumers. And everybody needs at least internet, right? So everybody should be calling me.
And
Do you guys have any questions?
Yes. How do you get it to where when you have an apartment complex for Wi-Fi to offer it to the tenants? I get that question a lot.
Oh, like if it's 6 different apartments or something and
88.
88? You know, that would be more of a business question. So like I would do each individual apartment. I'm not sure if they do that on the business side. There was a girl here last month named Christina, and she does the business services. She was just sick and couldn't make it tonight. So I can give you her card or her information too.
Thank
But we were first up to each other. And she has over 10 years of experience as well at Comcast. Any other questions?
So if someone calls you, approximately how much do they save over the 800 number?
How much would they save?
Yeah.
It just depends on what offer.
Okay.
I always talk up the realtor or landlord. I always say, hey, you're getting this deal because of this landlord or this realtor. To make sure, you talk up that person too.
Yeah.
Renee, do you have different deals each month? Do we have to call in each month? Like, we get these flyers in the mail a lot. So are there like different deals going, like maybe $50 off this month, next month it might be 100, or do you give those gift cards?
Well, the offers change every month, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yes, every month they change. They could change weekly. And I don't get to pick the offers, so. But they're gonna get the best possible rate through me. Like if you call the 1-800 number, they're not all bad, but I mean, they're more like an order taker. I find out like, what do you need? And I don't give people stuff that they don't want. If they don't want a home phone, I'm not gonna lie to them and say, you have to have a home phone.
Well, I know, but I was wondering, okay, for the month of February, do you have a special deal going versus what was happening last month? Yours is the
Well,
same every month?
Our marketing department changes that, so it wouldn't be up to me. So like I know usually I would say the end of every quarter, they do a little something better probably, because it's the end of a quarter. So like in December, we were offering more gift cards than what we are right now, because that was the end of a quarter. So maybe in March, that'll be the end of the first quarter, so they may be offering more gift cards available then, and maybe cheaper prices.
And that would go up, we will offer that to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? No?
Well,
Okay.
all I know is I just sold a house in Grand Blanc, and she raves about Renee and says the best experience she's ever had dealing with Xfinity Comcast that she's ever had. So.
Oh, thank you.
She's so wonderful, we invited her to our company Christmas party. It's true. So please help me welcome Chris Christensen to the stage. Chris is our board member Craig Federline's partner from Christensen and Federline, and he has a little announcement for us.
Thanks, Ed. I will tell you too that Renee also told us for our TV in the basement to get a Roku stick. So I did not know this, and you should have explained this to people. You don't have to have a box for every TV. If you have Xfinity Internet, you can get a Roku stick for your other TVs. And then you can get all your cable channels through the Xfinity app, which is crazy because I thought you had to pay for the box every month. So thank you, Renee. Anyway, so it really does work. Call Renee, she'll help fix stuff up. As Ed said, I'm Chris Christensen. My partner is Craig Federline, and we're Christensen and Federline. But what I wanted to announce today is that as of last week, I'm running for circuit court judge again this year. So I wanted to explain that. Say I've been a lawyer for 20 years here. I grew up in the Flint area. Went to Flint Southwestern and graduated and stayed in the real estate and construction industry while I went through law school, and then made that my career. So I'd be honored if anybody would ask a few questions, or at least just remember to vote in August for me. That'd be great. Any questions yet? It's early in the process, so.
What
None?
What seat?
Oh, it's circuit court. Judge Steely is retiring at the end of the year.
And what would you judge?
Well, right now that seat, there's an awful lot of family law.
Okay.
But 2 years ago, when they had added 2 new judges, they scrambled up where everybody is. So I suspect that it might not be exactly where that current judge is, because they've kind of shifted what the practice areas are. I would hope that it stays real estate and construction, because that's what I do a ton of. A lot of regular litigation, civil litigation. So,
Okay.
all right.
So you
Criminal
said-
defense.
You said county, so it would be all Genesee County.
It's the whole county.
Would you sit in downtown Flint?
Yes, right downtown. Oh man, there's got to be more questions.
What was the name
Ah,
again? I'm sorry.
Christensen.
Christian.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I did this on Wednesday and I got asked a million questions. It was crazy. I wasn't ready for those yet. It was early in the thing. So. Anyway, I'll be around if you guys have questions, and if not, get a hold of Craig. He can give you some bad information about me.
Thank you for coming out. All right, so we have our main speaker tonight, Brian Fisher from Insurance Advisors. And a little testimony for Brian. I've had properties that I was paying $2,000 a year for insurance. I now have insured with him better coverage for $350 a year. So he is a great insurance agent, and he's going to talk to us about all the insurance services that he offers. Please help me welcome Brian to the stage.
You're not embellishing anything, are you?
No, it's true.
Oh, I'm Brian Peischer. I work with the Insurance Center. I've been in the industry about 30 years. I see many familiar faces here, I work with many of you here. With that is, before we get started, with the 30 years, I started when I was 12, so it's not as what it appears. That's a disclaimer. Any which way, with that said, we're an independent insurance agency. We represent about 12 different insurance companies. So whoever you're working with, there's captives out there, think Allstate, others, which are fine, but when you buy with them, you generally are purchasing what they offer. Where with an independent, you can pick and choose which coverages would work best for yourself. We specialize in the hospitality segment with a focus on the habitational class. In the HAB class, or what we call HAB or habitational, it includes generally rental properties, including homes, apartment buildings, hotels, motels, resorts, bed and breakfasts, along with commercial real estate investors. Basically, anywhere where the property owner charges a fee for a tenant to rent or occupy. Could be long-term, could be short-term, could be, we have some hotels, motels that charge by the hour for whatever reason. Others charge by the day, some charge by the month, and whatnot. With that is, and we have a good understanding of this class of insurance business. This evening, we're gonna focus on the property portion of it. Actually, the personal lines property, nothing to do with apartment buildings, but personal lines, which is generally 1 through 4 homes, such as a single family, a duplex, a triplex, or even a fourplex. Anything 5 or more is a different segment, which won't be discussed tonight. May come back another time, we can discuss commercial property if you so choose. And what we're gonna also look at, basically, is a 10,000 foot level. I'm not gonna get too deep into the weeds, but generally overview. We're gonna start with, what is insurance? Pretty basic example, what is insurance? Often the insured feels it's confusing. I don't know if anybody ever felt that. It's expensive. Maybe even at times it seems to be a ripoff, but equally it's a necessary option to remain in business. The key of insurance is this. Insurance is nothing more than a transfer of risk. You will not accept the risk or the chance of losing your structure. The lender will not allow, or frankly, it's just not good business to run without property insurance. And very often it's done by the insured goes out to the marketplace. They purchase a policy through an agent or broker or retailer. The insured pays the premium and the insurance company issues a policy and assumes the risk based on the terms and conditions written within the contract. With that said, I'll take a moment here. Most insureds, myself included at one point, they're always focused in on price. Price is important, there's no question. I mean, you know, when is price not important? But the main thing of it is, you have to understand what you're buying for that price. You're buying a contract, and most of these contracts are, 30 to 40, 50 pages. You get it in the mail and you look at it, what the hell is all that? Why do they waste all that money on postage? All those words, the attorneys here know those words mean something. And most of those words are backed by case law. Very hard to overturn some of the stuff, that, especially when you sign. And that's why when you buy your insurance, they're having you sign this and that and all the rest. We just had one just call the other day, and she says, I just can't believe that's not covered. You never told me that. I had her forward the signature page and still waiting for her to call me back. I haven't heard from her. But any which way, I would focus in on the contract. Pricing's important, but usually it's the contract that makes the difference. With that said, the agent or broker presents the policy, which is usually, again, the contract of insurance. There's a little discussion between your agent and the insured, and it's basically based on price. How much does it cost? Sometimes, you might go by the name of the company or the agency. Usually the insured, even some agents, don't quite understand what's in the habitational policy, because frankly, it is a specialty market. But after the loss, then it's discovered. Well, I should have had this, or I had this, and it's awful a tough time to discover it. There's an old saying in the insurance industry, there's never is a complaint with an insured after they had a successful claim and it was paid as what they were looking for. Is there any questions on any of this? Pretty straightforward. Let's get into pricing. Everybody wants to know about price, even myself at times. Where does the pricing come from? There's 4 things that drive insurance pricing. A lot of this is common sense. But before we get into pricing, we got to determine what we call occupancy. Occupancy is 3 portions. Occupancy is, whether it be a commercial building or a residential, occupancy would be owner occupied, that would be your and my homeowners. The owner lives there, that's owner occupied, that's known as a homeowner's policy. It's tenant occupied and or vacant, that's all there is. It's not that confusing. Owner occupied, tenant occupied, or vacant. And with that is there different prices for those different types of occupancies. And moving on with how is it priced? This is my 30 years experience, starting at age 12. The areas that make the insurance rate is location. Location plays a lot into it. Where is it located at? What is the immediate area like? Is it a declining area? Is there burn-up houses on either side? That's obviously going to affect the pricing. The next area is age and condition. What is the age of the structure? What is the current condition? What's the roof look like? The mechanicals, the hot water tank. Is the service panel been updated, or is it the old 60 amp service? Has there been any updates? Those should all be discussed with your agent. Very often there's discounts for that. And then it goes on to the insured. How much experience does the insured have with landlords or landlording or being in property management? Maybe this is their first rental. The more rentals you got, the more experience you have, more than likely the better the rate. It's based on the carrier. The other main driver of insurance is going to be losses. You obviously bought the contract, you bought the insurance. If there's a loss, certainly if the contract covers that, you'd be covered with it. But what the key of it is how many losses? What is the nature of the losses? What happened? What caused the loss? And there's folks right in the room here I know and other insureds. I have some that have 50 houses. The biggest I have is 150 houses. One guy has 150 houses. He's had no losses in 9 years. Others that say he's lucky. I got some insureds that got 5 houses, they've had 2 losses. They say they're unlucky. It's confusing at times. Is there any past bankruptcies? What's your financial history like? Have you bankrupt? Do you pay your bills? As groups, the key of it is with insurance is based on groups of people. And if you fit into the right slots, you should have affordable insurance premiums. There's no doubt about it. Something new too, that's only been around the last couple, 3, maybe 5 years, and not every carrier uses this, but is these crime scores, these FBI crime scores. It measures assaults, measures arsons, and measures crime patterns in census tracts. It used to be, it still is some insurance companies got to use a rating basis. Some use zip codes, some use towns. The more sophisticated ones will break it down to census tracts. And within certain census tracts, there's a crime score assigned to that tract. The lower the score, the more you pay. The higher the score, they start at 100 and they cap out at, they start at 1 and they cap out at 100. So if the score is a 50, it's probably going to be neutral. The lower the score, like an 8 or a 10, the more the premium's going to be, because statistically or actuarially, there's more of a chance for a crime in that area, and that's historical data as well. And those are reset every January 1st. And this is the other is, no, don't move me out of the room. The insurance companies, most insureds don't understand this. Insurance companies are for-profit businesses, believe it or not. And there's 3 models for insurance companies. Some are stock companies. Think of Allstate is a big stock company. They have shareholders. Equally, you have mutuals. There's some mutuals out there, those are like a credit union. And there's even a few carriers we represented currently that are family-owned. Actually, they put their money out there. And when you look at that, for insurance purposes, there's about 1,200 classifications of different kind of risks. You have bars, restaurants, you have movie theaters, you have rentals or habitational. Historically, the HAB market or habitational has been very tough. It's a tough market for insurance companies to turn a profit. That's why a lot of carriers out there, they raise rates. They only accept 4 rental units. They're all done, they withdraw from the market. Over time, if they cannot turn a profit within certain segments of the market, they won't write it. Historically, habitational is a very tough market for insurance carriers, and that's statistical, that's a fact. It's hard for them to make profits. And the reason of that is it's pretty basic. Now, we're talking about fire insurance tonight, or property insurance. Property insurance, you could take, it's based on per $100 of value. So if you insured a home for $50,000, you divide it by 100, you got 500 units. Usually you can plan on paying about $3 to $4 per $100, $3 to $4 per 1,000. So if you insured it for $50,000, your property rate is, assuming everything's equal, the insured has good credit, and in the area you're in is in the middle of the road, you're looking at $200 to $250 premium for the property side. Now the liability would be something in addition to that. So with that is, if they're charging, let's say $200 to $250, common math would dictate, if there's one loss, that's $50,000, how many of those premiums they gotta collect? That's what the challenge is in habitational. And that's where if you got losses, if you got credit problems, you got this and that, that's why you'd be paying more for the insurance. It's all based on risk. With all that said, is there any questions on any of that?
Is there any good news, Brian?
Oh yeah, we're getting to the good stuff, Brian. We're just trying to get, we're trying to get to that, okay? We're moving on now. What is property? What is property? We say, what is property? I'll share with what property is. Property is the dwelling or the structure. It's the walls, the floor, the ceiling. This room is property. It's basically the primary building. Property insurance does not include the ground. It don't include the land. It does not include the infrastructure, such as the well, the septic system, sewer lines, utility hookups. It would not include the basement walls, the floors, or the footing. Most insureds don't realize that. And a good example is, we very often ask, and this is personal lines, this has nothing to do with commercial lines. Personal lines is, someone calls, and we're blessed with hundreds of insureds, what do you pay for the house? I paid $100,000 for it. The next question is, how much do you owe on it? I mean, clearly if you owe 100, you gotta put $100,000 coverage on it. But assuming you put 20% down, maybe 80,000 would work. And very often that's not thought of that way. And if your current agent is not asking that, you need to ask why. Because again, once again, the land is not covered. What's gonna happen to the land after the fire, tornado, the land is there. The well, the septic system, sewer lines, utility hookups, the basement walls, floors, and the footing are not covered. What's gonna happen to any of that? It's always there after a fire. In fact, most fires are only partial at that. So with that is maybe 80,000 would work. Again, going back to the rating method, if you're paying $3 per or $4 per $1,000, that right there is $50 a year. If you own 10 houses, you own 20 houses, you're in the business 20, 30 years, you've overpaid for your insurance. You only have to insure the structure. That's important. With that is, generally speaking, detached structures, think of garages, pole barns, those are not automatically covered. Again, this is just a general 10,000 foot view. You should always mention, assuming it's insurable. What I mean by that, the roof ain't leaning or it's in decent shape, you always have to schedule outbuildings, such as detached garages, whatnot. And the key of it is there, after a fire or tornado, these items are generally always there, as far as the land and the infrastructure and whatnot. And also too, the insurance carrier, the contract of insurance, they clean up the mess and the land is returned back to you. Now, some of these areas in urban areas, a lot ain't worth 10 cents probably. But there's other areas, the lot, it has a value to it. That should be backed off. Any questions on any valuations? Okay, the next area is going to be valuations, what we just discussed, but a little deeper. And what this means is, how should I insure my home, or what should I insure my home for? This is probably one of the biggest contentions we have with some insurers. In fact, we have clients, some I won't work with because they don't understand it. Even after my 12 years old, up to 30 years, they understand it better than me, and I tell them I would just stay where they're at. The key of it is, what should I insure my home for? Again, this is personal lines, 1 through 4 units. And generally is, where that comes from is, I paid $100,000 for my house. Let me back that up. I paid $50,000 for the house, but I got a great deal. I never met a landlord yet. They never said I overpaid. I got a great deal, and this house is worth $100,000. I want to insure it for $100,000. I know it's worth $100,000. There's case law, and I've seen it more than once, is in the first 36 months of owning that property, if you're over insuring that, and some agents will, they either don't understand it, or they simply would just take the premium. The insurance company owes you no more than what you paid for that, minus the value of the land and the infrastructure, plus any betterments and improvements, B&I. And with that is, so you paid 50, you insured it for 100, you'll probably maybe get 60 to 65. You wasted your money on the other 35. And I've had insurers debate me back and forth. That's all they owe. That's a fact. And even after the 3 years, I'm talking about total losses now. After the 3 years, with that is, even then, they take comparables or comps in the area. They're generally gonna use rental properties. They're not gonna use the one where they lived there 40 years. They're gonna use a rental property, and they're gonna use that as the basis. So it's always important to understand how to insure it. Equally with that said, what is B&I? B&I is betterments and improvements. That may be carpet, certainly could be a roof to a degree, maybe it could be windows, doors, siding. What it generally is not is paint. I mean, you expect to paint it. That's equally important to understand that. With that is, and again, I've had some, folks I couldn't help, landlords, they paid 50 for it. It's readily very easy to look up, and they say, I want to insure it for 100, that's what it's worth. They'll never get the 100. If that was the case, there's folks out there that burn for profit. I put 50,000 in it, and it burned up 8 months later, and he thinks he's gonna get 100,000. And all P&C losses, property casualty losses, they pass income tax free. They flow beyond the tax man. And there's simply the insurance companies have it understood. And if it goes to litigation, they lose. I've seen it on many occasions. Is there any questions regarding that? Okay, with that is, we pass out this chart. This is where you can really help with your insurance. Do you all have this chart? Cause of loss chart? Okay, this is not available with every company. There's a lot of companies out there, you can only pick what they sell. But there is equally companies out there, generally independent carriers, that allow you to buy your chart of loss or your cause of loss, or what sometimes we call perils of coverage. With that is, starting on the, this is for habitational, clearly up top it says hab. Hab is where a tenant lives. It generally means non-owner occupied or vacant. And again, this is the property coverage. Cause of loss means just that. What caused the loss? What happened? And if you go over to the left side, you'll see on the side there, it says fire and lightning. That's pretty self-explanatory. You had a fire or lightning. You have explosions. That'd be like a hot water tank, whatnot, gas leak. Windstorm or hail. Windstorm or hail is pretty self-explanatory. That could be tornadoes. That could be trees blowing down, hitting the home or the separate structures. You have riot or civil commotion. That's pretty self-explanatory. You have vehicles. Car runs off the road and hits your home. Smoke damage. Sinkholes, if you're so concerned about such a thing. Sprinkler leakage really don't apply. The The next area is what we call property crime coverage. A property crime coverage, that's an interesting area, and that's individually based on the carrier you buy the insurance from. Property crime coverage is vandalism. Vandalism means somebody went in there and busted your home up. What's interesting with this, and this is the same with any insurance company, they're all the same. If your tenant busts your home up, your insurance company will not cover that. You had the wrong tenant. That's a business operation. Should have done a better job with the tenant. You entrusted the key with them, and they busted it up. No company will cover that, even on commercial policies. The next area is theft coverage. That was a big program years past with furnaces and hot water tanks and copper being stolen. The other area is burglary damage. What that is the neighbors are watching TV and they look out the window and they see a flashlight across the road and they goes, what the heck is that? They call the police come in and they're getting ready to steal it, but they didn't steal it, it's still there. That's burglary. That's different than theft. Those three coverages are difficult to obtain. And if you have many of those property crime coverages, it's hard to get insurance for you in the future. A couple of these other ones really don't apply, but another one is certainly would be the freezing of plumbing systems. That's just that. It's the pipes broke and they froze and they busted. And then the other one is flood. Flood's pretty basic, it's not too confusing. Flood means there's water there now where there's normally not water. That's the definition of a flood. For this intensive purpose, what a flood is basically water in the basement. The sub pump failed, the water come through the doors or windows. Generally, that's not covered. That's hard to purchase that on tenant occupied homes. Also, a flood could be a broken pipe. If you bought the coverage, that would be covered. But again, that's often confused with insurers. As we hear, well, that ain't right. My neighbor's house flooded and it was covered. I said, where'd it come from? Well, it was the pipe. Well, that's covered if they bought the right coverage. Well, where'd yours come from? Well, it was the sub pump. That's two different things. Okay, so with that said, that's what's covered on the one left side. Now, there's 4 different options what you can buy. And not every company will extend this. You can buy fire only, basic, broad, or special, if you look along the middle there. Fire is to the left, basic, broad, special. Fire only, we don't see a lot of this in personal lines, 1 through 4 units. Do on commercial buildings. On some commercial buildings that will survive a nuclear blast or a nuclear pulse. I've insured some that are 4 or 5 stories, the walls are 2 foot thick. We don't extend wind. We just put fire on there, fire and explosion. And very often there's a discount for that, sometimes substantial discount, where you can purchase fire only. But moving on to, or backing up to personal lines where the fire only would come in at, and what that covers is just fire and lightning and debris removal. Where that would factor in is, let's say you have a schedule of homes. You have 20 homes and you just bought one in February. It needs a roof. I mean, it has a foot of snow on it. It's very possible, and there's some in the room I'm assuming we worked with, we can put fire only on it initially, and then in the spring, when it dries out and whatnot, you put a roof on there, you forward photos, and we can go up to the next coverage, which is basic. Now, basic coverage is very, very common. That's probably the most common coverage we buy. It's up to the insured to decide. Basic, in a nutshell, will cover, and again, you can see the dots there. It'll cover fire and lightning. It'll cover explosion, windstorm or hail, tornadoes. It'll cover riots, and equally, some carriers will extend theft coverage. It's important to understand it all goes back to the wording of these contracts. Some of these contracts are misleading, and frankly, I didn't write it. There's a carrier out there we represent. They highlight they cover theft. If you read the contract, the words do mean something. It does not cover theft of metals. So I guess if they rolled the carpet up, it would cover that. And if they stole the cabinets, it would cover. The bulk of these are furnaces or metals. So the metals are excluded. With that is, if basic don't work for you, and maybe you want perhaps broken pipes. A lot of this is the condition of the home, what's gonna drive that. If you want the broken pipes, you would buy the broad form. And if you see the dots there, broad form would pay the freezing of the plumbing systems. And then, of course, if you want the all risk, that's special form. We don't write a lot of that. Now, there's a lot of carriers out there, and I represent the one carrier too, we represent 10 of them. Some of these carriers out there, not dropping names, are one of the largest in the country, like Allstate. Allstate's a great company, we use them sometimes. They have limitations, they'll take 4 homes, and they generally want your auto and home as well. But Allstate, all they sell is special form. It's the only option you got. And again, maybe you don't need special form, and you're paying $150 more a year for that coverage when you don't need that form, if that makes sense. Is there any questions on the cause of loss? You can have these. These are very good charts. These are excellent charts. These are the contracts of what you're buying. No questions on that? Okay. Now we're gonna go into loss settlements. And what is a loss settlement? This is the area that frustrates lots of insureds. There is 2 types of loss settlements. One is actual cash value, or better yet, depreciation. The other is replacement cost. Actual cash value is very common. And what determines that, I would say, would be directly the experience of the insured, where if they own 5 homes and they're, with all due respect, anybody here is 80 years old, maybe they don't have the ability to go fix stuff, as opposed to if you're 30 years old. With that is ACV, we sell both, we sell a lot of both, but ACV is the most common. Generally, urban areas, it's gonna be actual cash value, because that's all the insurance carrier may extend. Maybe a suburban area, replacement costs. A lot of it goes back to what the value is of a home. With that is, this gets a little deep in the woods, or the weeds, but depreciation's pretty basic. Most losses are gonna be wind. Probably 75% of the losses out there are wind coverage. Tree blows into the roof, or the tree falls, hits the roof, and depreciation's pretty basic. The shingles are damaged. One, you would look at the coverage form. Which coverage did you buy? Did you buy wind? Did you pay the premium? If that's the case, you've triggered your policy. And with that is, the depreciation's pretty basic. Let's say the shingles are 20 years, they're designed to last 20 years. And very often, if it needs to be, the insurance company will get a roofer out there and they'll estimate. Sometimes there's a permit pulled, other times a roofer can tell how old the shingles are. If the shingles are 10 years old, half of 20 is 10. You're gonna be paying 50% of that. So if it's a $5,000 loss, the insurance company's not gonna take 10-year-old shingles and nail them back on. They're gonna put new shingles on there. So that goes back to the betterment and improvement. You'll be paying 50% of that. If the shingles are 20 years old and the roof is designed to last 20 years and they're wore out, you may not get nothing. They may deny the loss. Now, in the event you don't want the actual cash value, if the home, based on location and the condition and the insured, you might want replacement cost. Replacement cost is pretty basic. There's no depreciation. Same example, the shingles are designed to last 20 years. They're 10 years old. The insurance carrier would put new shingles on without a deduction for the depreciation. Is there any questions on any of that? It's kind of, a lot of folks have trouble understanding that. With that is very often, we hear quite often from insureds, well, if I want replacement cost, the insurance carrier is requiring me to carry 80% to value. So if it costs $200,000 to rebuild the house, they want you to have $160,000 on there. Some carriers, again, it may not be the large ones, but these smaller ones, they'll actually put on a market value replacement cost. So if the home is worth 80, they'll charge you a fee and they'll put replacement cost on that, where you don't have to insure it for 100%. Is there any questions on loss settlement? Okay, go ahead.
So
Go ahead, Brian.
on the replacement, they're gonna base your rate on the replacement cost.
Yes. It's a form, it's a coverage form, what you're buying.
Right.
We can talk about it later, but I'm just giving you the 10,000. I'm just giving you the easy look at it. Okay, and we're gonna be wrapping it up. There's also endorsements, what we call endos, endorsements you can buy with property. An endorsement, you can add coverage. The insurance company sometimes will modify coverage or restrict coverage. With an endorsement, one of them that's not a bad idea, which some come with it, others you can buy it. It's called LOR, or loss of rents. It's kind of important if you have a mortgage. You have a fire there on December 13th, and the place is down for 5 months. The tenant moves out and you got a payment due, and your money's tight, it's even tighter. And loss of rents is not a bad idea. And the interesting thing about loss of rents, being a property casualty, you don't have to pay the income tax on that. The tenant was there, you gotta pay tax. Loss of rents, you don't have to pay income tax. Just the way it works. There's another endorsement as well out there with some carriers. It's called agreed value. And what is agreed value? It's an endorsement, they're gonna charge you a few bucks, it's not too expensive. If you remember earlier, what we talked about was valuations. It's, if they insured your house for $70,000, you got the contract, you paid the premium, they accepted the premium, they renewed the premium year after year, and then there's a fire. And then they go out and do a comparable or a comp in the area, and they say the house is worth $48,000. You're saying, well, look, you took my $70,000 for 10 years. What's the deal with that? Well, with that is you can buy an agreed value endorsement. That's one of the, there's 50 different endorsements, but with that is sometimes it's only $20 or $30. And there's no doubt about what you'll get for your settlement. Is there any questions on any of this?
Go ahead.
One at a time. Go ahead.
If you have any other endorsements, can you put them on any of the coverages that you have?
There's all kinds of endorsements. There's a lot of different ones, and they're all different with the different carriers.
So you can add on an endorsement?
If it's available by that carrier, sure, absolutely.
And the loss of rent?
The LOR, loss of rents,
Only available if it has any of these?
not necessarily. No, you can buy loss of rents on fire only. I've done it. You can buy it on basic, broad, or special. The insurance company, trust me, they'll take your premium as long as it matches. Yes. All those coverages are significant. I've known folks that had more on the commercial side. I had one guy, we had him sign off. He had a commercial building, he had 16 units. He says, all big rip off, all this and that, until the fire got there, burnt through the roof. He bankrupt. He had no loss of rents. And of course, he comes back at us, you never offered it. Well, we had the form, we did offer it, you signed it. And, you know, I mean, it's an insurance premium. Coverage is important, and so is the contract. There's no question about that.
You know, earlier you said that if you bought a house and if it burned within 36 months, the insurance company would only pay you the amount you paid for it. But on a lot of these urban houses, City of Flint houses, you pay $10,000 or $15,000 for it, and nobody's going to insure it for $10,000 or $15,000.
It's available with some carriers.
But generally, the company wants to insure it for 30 or 40 or something. You know?
A lot of the urban homes, we didn't discuss that tonight, that's gonna be on commercial paper. Commercial policies are different. You have to insure it with a formula they use. And that's why commercial policies are widely written in urban areas. Commercial policies, again, for everything on insurance, there's an exception. There's no question. And the more urban it is, the more exceptions there is. And a lot of personal lines companies will not write in certain locales. I don't make the rules up, it's just the way it works. So commercial companies will. And what they do is they'll, generally in a nutshell, it's replacement cost minus a depreciation schedule. It's roughly $60 per, or $60,000 per 1,000 square foot. So they make you carry 60,000 worth of coverage. There's no options.
But in the first 36 months,
Yes.
are they only going to pay you?
That's one of those exceptions. Again, we're not talking about, we're talking about tonight personal lines. It depends on the contract. Most of those commercial policies, if they accepted 60,000 of premium, there's case law there, they owe you the 60,000. But with that is, there's a lot of these commercial companies or carriers will not write the first 12 months. The first 12 months, the fire is gonna happen, it's 80%, what I understand, it's gonna happen in the first 12 months. So after the first 12 months is difficult to place in some areas, there's no doubt about it. You won't get most personal lines companies to write in certain urban areas. It's gonna be a commercial lines company. Furthermore, my understanding is, I'm not an attorney, but the case law is more favorable or more likely to be challenged on commercial policies as a personal lines policy, because they're gonna look at you more like a business client. And they got more collections, they got more remedies to control that. That answer your question, Henry?
Pretty much.
Hi, Mike.
Can you touch on liability separate policy?
Liability is different. I talked about that last year. I can come back again. This is just property only, personal lines property. You could talk for hours and hours. I mean, it's a wide area. This is just property only, personal lines. You had a question, Jerry?
Yeah, I'd like to mention to the folks here that loss of rent is really important. I had an 11-unit building. One room had a fire in it. The city emptied the whole building out for a year and a half. I lost all that rent because I didn't have loss of rent.
Loss of rents is on single families, if you want it, it's available. On multifamilies, commercial, which is another meeting, if we meet again with it, I would say, I've had a few folks that I wouldn't insure. I mean, candidly, we don't need every client. Nor you need every tenant. With that is, loss of rents is critical. What'd that cost you? That cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Easy. The loss of rents is critical. And with loss of rents too, not get sidetracked, this is on the commercial side, but loss of rents also includes extra expense. What does that mean? Let's say you own an 80-unit apartment complex. The tenant moves out, or the tenant, you have a 14-unit here, you got 10 buildings, and one of them caught on fire. They're gonna shut that down. Even though it might be only damage in one of the units, they're gonna shut it down. The tenants go by, and you say, look, I got 4 empty units here, and they will pay to move those tenants to those other units. Absolutely. And then when the building is after the building is rebuilt, they will help advertise, they'll pay for your help refill it, they'll pay for the cost of running the credit reports. There's a lot of it cost with that. And very often too, I will say this, I realize how people view insurance, but the truth of it is, insurance is your partner. If you ever have a loss, you're gonna find out what you got. That is so critically important. It makes the difference. I have some insureds I've had for 25 years. They had a loss, and it worked. We communicated with them. They were so relieved how it worked out. In fact, Terry and I were talking earlier about a mutual friend, and he had a loss. And he was, I wouldn't say delighted, but he certainly was happy the way it was handled. I mean, again, the words, the contract mean something, especially on the commercial side. If you got, 14 single families, you lose one, you could manage it. But if you got a commercial building and that is down for a while, you still got the taxes, you got the insurance, you still got to plow the snow. All that stuff is picked up from the loss of rents or extra expense. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a single-family home and I had a flood.
A flood?
I had a flood.
Flood?
Yeah, and at State Farm.
Well, hang on just a minute. How did the flood originate? That's the most construed area that people argue about. What caused the flood?
Some kind of a cracked pipe underneath a bathroom sink.
Okay, well, that's a flood. By definition, that's a broken pipe. It's certainly a flood.
And I was a novice I'm still a novice anyway, but I didn't know how good my insurance was. It was really great.
State Farm does a good job. State Farm,
Everything.
they do.
Covered their rent, they covered
Yeah.
cleanup,
They have a package policy or composite policy.
they paid my
Yes.
utilities, they paid for everything.
Yeah.
And I got my house, I was my own contractor, I chose everything and, had it fixed and I made out. And I'm
Well, you're not supposed to say that, make out, but it's, I've been in this 30 years, we got about 3,000 of these homes insured. I've known others who made out just fine too. No, I mean with all due respect.
I didn't know how good my insurance was. I don't know for sure.
So we can mark you down as a happy customer?
There
you go.
Because I didn't know what I was doing and they could have led me to everything and took care of it.
Well, there's a reason State Farm is one of the largest, but not knocking State Farm, but again, they have lots of limitations too when it comes to tenant occupied. They only take so many and this and that, and they're in and out of the market. And it's a tough market for them to frankly generate a profit. Is there any other questions? Brian Udell must have one more, Brian. Come on.
I just know this, no matter what happens in the basement, it was a broken pipe.
Yeah. Well, I've had folks call and I would tell them where did it originate from, and they call back, it was a pipe.
Broken pipe.
Broken pipe.
That happened. Broken pipe.
And of course, the other is no one ever told me, so. Is there any other questions? Okay, good deal. Thank you.